All right, I'm just gonna hit record and just talk. Um, Making this video, I'm not gonna say it's hard. I'm not gonna say it's easy. I just feel led to talk about this subject. Um, I've tried talking about this before in the past about my life and how I grew up, but it was really not for me and but really for the people um on the other side of the screen that I was trying to get to. This time around, this video's for me, and I just wanna let this out, because sorry, because, I've been through a lot, and I don't wanna live the way I've been living all my life, so try to, just put my thoughts together because I didn't wanna plan this out, put it on paper, but, some people know, I had a rough childhood growing up, and I didn't really know that I had a rough childhood, growing up. I just became more aware of what I actually went through in the last few years. Um, it's a lot of, like, suppressed memories and suppressed emotions. How do I know they were suppressed? Because I stuffed my face till I was 420 pounds. But I grew up at home just a very stressed out little kid. Um, my earliest memories of terror were when I was, anywhere from 3 to 5 years old. Nights where my dad would come home with a case of Budweiser, and I knew that something was gonna happen, and, he'd watch TV and drink, um, and before you know it, I was underneath our bed at the time. My sister and I shared a bedroom, and we were underneath the bed. I was underneath the bed as my dad shut the power off in our apartment complex and proceeded to lose his mind and, I believe hurt my mom, and, um, so those things, I didn't really know affected my life. I I I rarely thought about those things growing up through my teenage life to my early 20s. And just about a year or 2 years ago, everything stopped. I'm this entrepreneur that's able to multitask and create relationships and, um, competent person that can sell and get people to trust him. But a year and a half ago, everything just went on pause. I was breaking down. I, um, I was losing my mind. I, um, I didn't know I had PTSD. I was, freaking out in bed at night, like, just freaking out, waking up, screaming. Um, it's been a rough road. So, I'm wanting to shed light because I know the videos that I watched of other people that are like me helped me feel like I wasn't crazy. And, in respect to that, I want to kind of shed light more on, how I grew up. So that was kinda like one of the earliest memories I had growing up, was my dad. And to be more detailed about it, I remembered it specifically. It came to me. My wife and I were in our Tesla, and we were just sitting there and just kind of talking about life and what's going on with me. And all of a sudden, I had the memory come to me, and I started reliving that exact moment in the car. So it wasn't something that I knew was there all my life. It was suppressed, and that's when I realized something's up, because after that event, it literally felt like I was in that room underneath the bed, screaming for my life, thinking that my dad's gonna come in and murder me, and that he's gonna hurt my mom. I remember the feelings for the first time. It's hard to explain. And I was in the car with my wife, and I was screaming and, like, in terror, like, screaming in the car, like, I can't believe, like, it felt like I was there. And, she started doing more research, and I did more research as she continued, and realizing that these suppressed memories come back. And as a child, I I blocked myself from those emotions to protect myself, because children don't have the capability of, like, comprehending what's actually happening to them. I know there were many, many more nights like that. Um, you know, there a night where I remember seeing a gun pulled out on my mom, um, through the door cracks, or the crack of the door. There were nights, many nights, where I would just lay in bed because their bedroom wasn't next to me, and this was at our home after we moved from that apartment complex. I was like 6 to 8. And I remember many nights just being in bed screaming, crying for my dad, calling for my dad, "Papa, papa, mama," as they're screaming and yelling and hitting and banging things on the ground, and nights just alone, terrorized, crying, thinking someone's gonna die. And I I I I didn't know it was gonna affect me at 34 years old. You know what I mean? I didn't know that those nights were going to be relived at 34 years old, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, that was just kind of the beginning. And my dad was very cold, just a cold person to me. Um, and in Filipino culture, when your dad comes home, or whenever the parent comes home, you know, you need to go to them. Like, you need to go to them, and you need to ask them how their day was, and, tend to their needs and make sure they're okay. And whether that's culture or not, I didn't wanna go to my dad. I was afraid of my dad, but I was bad if I didn't do it, you know? So I did it. Every day he'd come home growing up, his shoes couldn't come off, and he'd go on the couch to watch TV, and it'd say, "Hey, papa, hi. How was work?" Asking him things. And I never really processed that it should have been the other way around. You know what I mean? Like, even right now, I struggle with talking about that. I wanted my own dad to come to me and say, like, "Hey, buddy, how was your day?" Like, "How are you?" "Are you feeling okay?" "Did you have a good day?" Like, never. As I got older, I even told my parents, I was like, I'm jealous of all the American kids in the neighborhood, because their parents asked them how they're doing, right? I literally remember saying that to them as I got older. But so, that was the type of environment I was in. And from what I learned is, when a father is abusive to his wife, when a husband's abusive to his wife, the wife tends is has a choice, right? They either take the children, pack up their things, and leave, or take that anger and frustration that they have towards their husband and everything they have going on internal and put it on their kids. And unfortunately, it was the second part. So not only did my dad was he a drunkard, abusive father growing up and husband, my mother became abusive to my sister and I. And I still have like memories that I feel are still in me that I'm still trying to process. But one memory in particular, I remember, well, actually, to preface that, I grew up banging my head on the wall and on the bed. Like whenever I was in trouble or anything that happened, I remember just like uncontrollably, take banging my head on the bed, just like crying and like in a rhythm because it was soothing to me. And I learned that the child is the child is trying to soothe themselves through banging their head on the wall or on the bed because that's the only way they know how to soothe themselves. I didn't again, these are memories that came to me in the last year or so. And how I realized that is because, as embarrassing as it sounds to say, like I used to punch myself and I didn't so embarrassing. It is so embarrassing to say this, man, but it's the truth. Like I used to punch myself and not know why. Like whenever I would do something wrong or if I was in trouble with, my wife and even before my wife, my a past girlfriend, like I I did something wrong, I just would punch myself uncontrollably. And I never knew why I did those things. I looked crazy. Well, maybe because I am crazy, like because of what happened. So, there's a memory where I was in the hallway and I remember like feeling like a tingly like sensation on my face, and I remember seeing my mom's like hand and fist, and I was in my closet like shaking, crying. This is like a year and a half ago, and the memory came to mind when my mom either punched me or slapped me because my face was like numb and tingly. And you know what, that's the only memory I can remember, and I know there's more because I'll tell you this in a second. But like I was less than 8 years old. I was like anywhere from 5 to 7, 5 to 6, somewhere around there. And it had to do with cleaning the house. Like my mom was like extremely anal about cleaning, and behind the toilet, the creases behind the toilet had to be spotless, and if it wasn't, you are in big freaking trouble. The dishes needed to be done. Like when she came home, everything had to be done. And I believe children should have chores. It's good, for them to learn responsibility. But I built up this anxiety as an adult that, you know, cleaning means I'm good, and if things are not clean, then I'm bad. And it's really not a huge issue, but that helped me understand where I am today. I remember like hiding in my closet growing up and just closing the door and just like in terror hiding in my closet, like quiet, like hiding from my mom. And, I've addressed this with my mom and, unfortunately, she doesn't want to accept or she doesn't wanna say that it happened. She doesn't wanna say that she ever slapped me or punched me in the face. I actually took them to Panera Bread before my dad and mom, and I was like, "Hey, look, we need to sit down and talk. I need to tell you this is what's going on. Just be honest with me. Like, all I wanna know is the truth. Like, what happened? Mom, did you hurt me? I'm not mad at you," which I'm not. I'm not mad at them. I just want honesty. And they're very reluctant. My mom was very, very reluctant. And, finally, after, like, 30 minutes, she's like, in, like, broken English and Filipino Tanglish, what they say is like, all she did was possibly just hit me in the arm, punch me in the arm. And my dad sided with her, like, "She's not that strong, like, she can't hurt you." Well, when you're a little child, I'm just processing that, my parents are saying those things and it hurts. But yeah, he said, "Your mom can't hurt you. Look at her, she's small. How can she hurt you?" When you're a 5-year-old, 6-year-old little kid, a mother is extremely strong. You know what I mean? So she said she only punched me in the arm, and I know that's not the truth and whatever, right? How I know there was more terror, was because I specifically remember a moment where my sibling, um, something about the toilet wasn't clean, something. And I remember hearing yelling and hearing screaming, and I run over to the bathroom. I fall to my knees because I see my mother stuffing my sister's face into the toilet, like, forcing her into the toilet, and my sister's, like, gagging and, like, throwing up, and, like, she's pulling her hair and, like, pushing her down, and my sister's screaming for help, and I'm on my knees screaming, begging for my mom to stop, but I couldn't articulate that because 'cause I'm, like, 5, you know what I mean? All I'm doing is saying, "Mama," like, "Mama, mama," screaming, not knowing how to process that moment, and again, these memories came up later in the last year and a half. 34 years old, I'm processing the moment. Multiple times in the last year, I've revisited that moment and allowed myself to feel it and scream like I'm literally reliving the moment. Just like, completely in terror. Like, there's no words to describe the helpless feeling to feel like you're in danger as a child, multiple times, mind you, but in that moment, watching your sibling being terrorized and hurt like that and not being able to do anything is insane for a child. Uh, and going down the line, right? Your mother has issues with her husband. Husband's doing things to his wife. The wife is now terrorizing her children. And then, my sibling, she's older than me, and my mom is terrorizing her. And the same choice then comes um, to the sibling. And I say these things again because it's what I went through. Um, and I don't have a lot of memories of my sister and I, but one thing that came to mind later, I was like 11, 12, I think. And my there computers were out, Compaq, I think is what it was that I had laptop and we all shared it. And I found pornography. Uh, I was molested prior to this moment, but I'll get back to that. And I watched pornography on the laptop. No one knew about it. Then my sister found out, and she's like, she just yelled at the top of her lungs, "Ishak!" I was like, "What the heck happened?" Remember, I'm like 11, 12, I think, probably younger than that. And I'm like going into my room and she pulls up the pornography and she starts to tell me to look and said, "Is this me? Is this what I was watching?" And I start crying, like embarrassed and scared. And I'm like, "Yes, yes, like that's what I was watching." It's like, "Sit down, sit down. Is this what?" And she plays the pornography and you hear, you know, the girl moaning and them these people having sex. And she's like, "Watch it. Sit down, watch this. You like that, huh? Is that what you want? Is that what you like?" As she started to like berate me and make me watch pornography in front of her. She was someone I respected a lot. She was in church and part of church groups and stuff like that. So growing up, I saw her as God, unfortunately. And in that moment, I felt condemned. In that moment, I felt condemned and chained to pornography and a long 2 decades of a string of being addicted to pornography at a level that's dark. And thank God, um, I still work on things today, but thank God that I'm alive. I think that's all I could say is I thank God I'm alive. It's not like it's a drug where you can, consume, overdose, and die, but it's there to kill you too. Pornography is. And I battled that for years, because I grew up in church. I'm going to church, but I'm battling pornography. I'm going to church, lifting my hands, but I'm battling pornography. But yeah, that's for another time and place. Another event that happened is me had to be flown to the Philippines. I was like 9 or 10 years old, and my in the Filipino culture, there's something called tuli or basically circumcision. And instead of circumcising a child when they're infants, they in the Philippines, you're supposed to circumcise a child when they're older to, present them like they're becoming men. It's like a cultural thing, which I do not agree with. It's insane to me. But I was flown to the Philippines. I was in like fourth or fifth grade. And I remember all my friends kind of like making fun of me that that's what I was doing. And I remember flying to the Philippines with my grandparents, and they were very old and didn't speak English. So I was the one to lead us to the airport and, or go have us go through the airport, talk to the flight attendants. Like that was me at 8 to 9 to 10 years old, um, having to help guide us through airports, which is insane having a child do that. But getting there, um, my aunt was there to help us and had an uncle, or my uncle was there. And, I grew up with my father always making fun of my uncle that he's gay. And, being gay in the Philippines is very common. I have cousins that are gay. And, being at home, my dad like making fun of my uncle all the time being gay. I didn't want to be around my uncle. You know what I mean? In the sense that I'm a child and I had to sleep with some adults because there was either my uncle's bedroom or my aunt's bedroom. And I remember hearing my dad's voice when I was looking at my uncle's bedroom saying like he's gay, and I'm like, well, I'm a boy and I'm afraid to sleep with my uncle if he's gay. So I decided I'm gonna, sleep with my aunt. And this began this very long week or so of us being together. And I didn't know what grooming was. I didn't know any of this until this past year and a half of what could happen to a child. But I was with my aunt. She took care of me, I remember the day that I was going to get circumcised, like have the surgery. we were at this restaurant on the second floor of, like, a busy street, and I can see the doctor's office where I was gonna go, and she was massaging my hands, you know, she was sitting there, and she was, like, massaging my hands and talking to me nicely, and, you know, "How are you? How you feeling?" Like, massaging my hands, like, intimately, you know? When we were walking through the streets in the Philippines, she'd put my hand around her waist and, like, put it through her belt buckle loop and, like, have me, like, hold her around her waist, and she'd present me to all her friends and family. Um, we would hold hands, and she'd, like, hold my hand, rub my head, and with my environment that I had at home, she I was looking for love, you know, I was looking for affection. And she was giving it to me, you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, she loves me," you know? I didn't know that she was I didn't know that she was, grooming me, and, looking back now, for me to hold my aunt's waistline and, like, have my arm around her like she's my girlfriend and, like, show me off to all her friends that her American nephew's here is insane, and what I learned is in the Philippines, whenever young boys get circumcised, women like, I've watched videos of women getting all, like, weird, like, excited that they're now men. Crazy. Well, fast forward, I get circumcised, and I have bandages down there, and I remember having to take care of it, you know? I think my uncle had to help me one time, and then my aunt obviously helped me, and I remember laying in bed with her and, graphic what I'm about to say, but it helped me hearing other people's stories, so I'm gonna say it, but I remember laying in bed with her and, she would talk to me sometimes at night. I don't know exactly, but she started bringing up her boyfriend at the time. She would tell me about her boyfriend. I don't know why, but she would talk to me about him. And I still have issues with it now because I don't know how this happened, but, um, I remember, like, her backside was against me, like, not, like, right up against me, but, like, close. And I remember seeing her scoot back a little bit, and either A, I, um, I got the erection first, or B, she said, "Oh, what's this? Oh, what is that?" And, and then I got the erection, and deep down inside, I still struggle with feeling so dirty as if I was the one to get erection first, but what I learned was, at a child's age, like, you don't it's like it's my body that, just a male body part that can have an erection, right? And, so for years I struggled, um, feeling what am I for years just a few days ago, I was just screaming, crying, like, "It's my fault." But that night in particular, she was like, "Oh, what's this?" Like, "Oh, oh," like, giggling and, like, wondering what is this? What is she touching? And acting like she didn't know what was there. Um, and that's when things kind of started. I don't remember more than what I'm about to tell you, but, I was there multiple nights. But, then, like, another moment, I don't know if it was the same night or another night, but she would talk to me about her husband or her boyfriend, and all of a sudden, she was talking about kissing, and she said that it was like she wanted to know what it was like, or am I a good kisser or something like that. I can't remember. All I remember doing next is being on top of her and kissing her, and, like, kissing her, like, my tongue and pushing against her teeth, and she's giggling and laughing, and, um, years later My wife, she stood up for me and she messaged aunt, and she said to my aunt that, uh, you know, what you did is wrong. You're horrible for doing that, and you're wrong. Like, she stood up for me. And my aunt replied back that it's not her fault, that it's mine, and God knows the truth, and that I'm the one that's going to be in trouble because God knows the truth that she didn't do anything and that I started it. Tormented me for years, just tormented me for years because not unfortunately I came home from the Philippines that year, and I was infatuated with this woman. Like, I wanted to talk to her. She texted me, she called me handsome, and she told me that she'd come and visit me soon, and treated me like I was her boyfriend. And I didn't know this at the time, at 10 or 11 years old. I knew that I made out with a woman that loved me, that cared for me, that showed me affection. And I didn't wanna kiss her, but I was there kissing her, like, even right now, I'm struggling talking about it, but I wanna get this out. Um, so being already in pornography, or was it after or before, I don't know exactly, but after I came back, I was even further into pornography, lost. Um, masturbating every single day, 3, 4 times a day, completely losing myself, and depressed at 11 years old. And time goes on, and I decide to tell my family, like, what happened, and tell them that, my aunt did this and did that. And, it sucks to say, but they never defended me. They never addressed her. I told my dad that this is what happened to me, and he says, "That's a good thing. That's a good thing. You're a man now." Like, I should have pride that my aunt molested me. I should feel good that I got this at a young age. And, he probably had his own issues, and I know he did, and he's gone through things, but either way, you should never tell your child that. So fast forward, present time, they're friends. My parents and my aunt, they hang out. There's pictures of them together, their arms across each other, hanging out. And, it hurts. Kind of numb to it right now, but it hurts. I don't think I've allowed my pain to go through it. Um, but I wanna say this, I forgive them, but I've never allowed myself to feel the pain, right? And I grew up within a religious family, going to church, lifting our hands, but going home, yelling, screaming, fighting, being drunk, you know, um, gossiping about people, all this stuff. So I was very confused. So even right now, like, I feel the need to say, I forgive my family. I forgive what I've been through. I forgive them, but there's no communication about it. Even the instance of when um my sibling forced me to watch pornography, she denies that that even happened. She denies that that's not the truth. So, like, I've been dealing with my family where they deny these things, or they just passively let it go, and they just wanna have this, like, normal relationship where it's like, "Hey, how's the weather in Arizona?" You know what I mean? Like, and just have this fake fluffy conversation, but ignore all the things that happened, and I can't live that way. I refuse to live that way. I I don't wanna I don't wanna associate myself with people who are not willing to talk about the truth. And I'm sticking up for little Meshach. Like, little Meshach deserves a human conversation about what had happened to him and how he grew up. I struggle with that. Like, like, I know there are other relationships, family relationships out there that have gone through worse than I did, right? And children have gone through worse than I did. But somehow there's communication involved, and allowing the child to express themselves without feeling like they're the problem. And that's my issue, is that whenever I've expressed how I felt about the past and what happened to me, it was always turned around to say that I'm the issue and that I'm the problem, right? Um, so yeah, time went on and I stuffed my face and I ended up getting to 420 pounds in high school, or actually later than high school. In high school, I was only 200 pounds and my parents still thought I was fat, and they put me on these weight loss programs, and I was losing a lot of weight, but multiple times they kept saying it wasn't enough. I need to lose more. So I got into this cycle of wanting to earn my parents' affection, and I tried unaliving myself, is what they say nowadays, by dumping a bunch of pills in my hydroxycut pills in my mouth. And that was later in life. And I didn't know what I was going through. I didn't know the pain that I endured as a child. I've always been chubby, but the food gluttony I didn't know was an issue, but I was addicted to food. I was addicted to pornography, and I was wasting my life away with food and pornography, just like indulging in that, not knowing why. Um, so here I am, 34 years old. I'm obviously still overweight. I'm working on that. But I think the biggest thing I want to take away, because there's more to this, and I'll probably have another video to talk about at some point. But I kind of just want to talk about those earlier years. There's other things I could probably bring up and talk about, but that's kind of the gist of it. If if this helps and means anything to you, that's exactly why this video was made. And then also for myself, because currently it isn't an open conversation. It isn't something that my family members want to talk about. I'm ostracized as if I need to go see a psychiatrist and that I need to go to the hospital and get help because they don't want to talk about any of this stuff. And that's okay, because I'm talking about it for myself so that I can finally move on with my life. I can finally take steps forward, walking away from the past. Um so yeah, not your usual content on my trading page, but I figured I'm gonna let this out and just keep any words of encouragement that I can give is God loves you. Um and I'm just learning that he loves me. It's been hard for me to accept love, and I'm learning that God loves me, even though I preached it and heard it and listened to all the worship songs that God loves me. But I've never in my life accepted that he loves me because of how I grew up. And just in the last 48 to 72 hours, I have been able to accept that he loves me so that I can start to love myself, because that's been the hardest thing, is to love myself. So I think that's it for now. If you like this video, I don't even want to say that. I think that's it for now. Appreciate you listening, and see you guys in the next video. Peace.